You walk into a place you have never been before, a gallery with quiet lighting and expensive silence, or a fine dining room where every movement feels measured. Nobody hands you a rulebook. Still, your voice drops. Your posture changes. You choose safer words. You start reading faces, reading pauses, reading what is not said. And what is strange is how fast it happens, like your mind already knows the script. So here is the real question. How does your brain decide what matters, what to ignore, and how to behave before you have time to think? Because in moments like this, you are not simply observing reality. You are predicting it. And that prediction is not random. Your brain relies on something psychologists call a schema. A schema is a compact package of expectations, a mental framework that helps you recognize what something is, what usually happens next, and what behavior will keep you in sync with the situation. It is built from everything you have seen, heard, felt, and repeated, then compressed into a usable pattern. Without schemas, every room would feel like the first room, every conversation like a foreign language, every social rule like a math problem you have to solve from scratch. Schemas make life efficient. They act like autofill for meaning, an autopilot for behavior, letting you move through the world with speed and confidence. But that same speed has a cost. When the mind prefers the familiar pattern, it can mistake the pattern for the truth. To make this easier to feel, do not picture your mind as a quiet filing cabinet. Picture it as a set of autopilot templates running in the background. The moment a familiar cue appears, the template loads, and your attention narrows toward what it predicts will matter. Think about how quickly the word restaurant changes your body. You expect a host, a table, a menu, an order, a check, a tip. You do not consciously calculate those steps. You simply arrive already prepared for them. That is the real power of a schema. It is not just a storage box for memories. It is a forward-facing model that suggests what is likely to happen next and how you should position yourself inside it. Life feels smooth because your brain is always one beat ahead, but being one beat ahead also means you can be one beat wrong. Schemas come in a few core forms, and you can feel them working if you know where to look. First, there are schemas for things, the mental shortcuts you use for objects and concepts, like a phone, a gym, or even tipping. You pick up a remote, and before you read anything, your hand hunts for the one button that feels like it matters. Second, there are schemas for people, your expectations about roles, personalities, and groups. The word manager can bring a whole tone of voice into your head before the person even speaks. Third, there are schemas for scripts, the built-in sequences for familiar events, like a job interview, a first date, a wedding, or a breakup. You hear job interview and your shoulders square up. Your answers become cleaner. Your smile becomes more intentional. Scripts are where schemas influence behavior most, because they do not just interpret the world, they tell you how to move through it. This is why schemas feel like relief. They save mental energy by turning endless possibilities into a smaller set of likely options. Instead of analyzing every detail, your brain pulls a pattern that has worked before and uses it to guide you now. That efficiency creates a sense of control. When you can predict what comes next, your stress drops, your decisions speed up, and your social timing improves. You catch the unspoken rules, the rhythm of conversation, the invisible boundaries that keep you from feeling out of place. In most situations, that is a real advantage. The mind is trying to keep you safe and functional, not endlessly curious. But here is the psychological trap. Because schemas are often right, you stop checking them. And the moment you stop checking, a helpful shortcut can quietly harden into a belief you no longer question. Now notice how easily this happens in a world where cues can be manufactured. Imagine you get a voicemail from your bank. The voice is calm, confident, perfectly paced. It uses the right terms, the right warmth, the right sense of authority. Before you even finish listening, you feel your body accept it as real. Of course it is real, your mind thinks. This is what a professional sounds like. Then you find out it was an AI voice, a high-quality clone built to trigger trust on command. And suddenly, the moment rewinds in your head. You realize you were not convinced by evidence. You were guided by a schema. Your brain saw the signal and loaded the template. Clear speech means competence. Competence means safety. Safety means obey. That is not stupidity. That is prediction doing what prediction evolved to do, moving fast with limited information. But speed and accuracy are not the same thing. The mind can be efficient and still be wrong simply because it preferred the familiar pattern over the messy truth. And once you see that, the darker side of schemas becomes obvious. A schema is not just a guide, it is a filter. It decides what you notice, what you dismiss, and what story your mind tells before the facts have a chance to speak. When a schema becomes too rigid, you stop meeting a person as they are and start meeting a label you have already prepared. First impressions stick because the brain craves coherence. It wants the world to stay predictable, so it keeps polishing the same narrative. When new information shows up that does not fit, the mind often explains it away, not because you are dishonest, but because your attention is already committed. This is how stereotypes form and why they feel so convincing. In dating, you can translate one awkward moment into a permanent red flag. At work, you can mistake confidence for competence, or quietness for weakness. Schemas save time, but sometimes they charge you in truth. So the goal is not to eliminate schemas. You cannot, and you should not. The goal is to notice when a schema is driving, and to take the wheel back before it turns into a verdict. Here is a simple 3-step protocol. Step 1 is name it. Ask yourself, what template just loaded in my mind? Say it plainly: the unreliable person schema, the dangerous stranger schema, the charming expert schema. When you can name it, you create distance from it. Step 2 is test it. Before you conclude, look for one detail that does not fit. One piece of evidence that forces you to slow down. If you cannot find any, that is already information, because it might mean you are not looking. Step 3 is update it. Do not erase the schema, refine it. Replace always with under these conditions. Replace everyone like this, with some people, in some contexts, sometimes. The updated schema becomes more precise, which makes your predictions more accurate and your judgments less reckless. You do not need to kill autopilot. You need to learn the moment when autopilot should disengage. And that moment is usually right before you feel certain. And that brings us back to the moment you walked into that unfamiliar room and somehow knew how to act. Your schema made the world feel readable. It gave you frictionless movement, social timing, and a sense of belonging. But it also handed you a pair of lenses, and lenses can distort as easily as they can clarify. This week, pick one situation where you tend to judge quickly. A stranger, a coworker, a comment online, a first impression. Run the 3 steps in real time. Name it, test it, update it. Because you are not only living in the world as it is, you are living inside the version of the world your schemas keep constructing.